Hi, this is Paul Logan with the Virginia Dental Association. We are well into the 2025 General Assembly session with action already on several important bills that impact dentistry. I'm joined by our lobbyist, Trip Perrin, for an update on what to expect. Trip, thank you for joining us. We had a delayed start this year to an already short session. What are you seeing as the big issues legislators and the governor are focused on this year?
Sure. It is definitely a fast session. For those that don't know, and I think I may have mentioned in my first update, this is the fastest legislature in the country. By far, people that do this for a living across the country are always just amazed at how much work actually gets done in what is a very short 46 days. So I think, with that said, even though with a little bit of a delay, given the water issues here in Richmond, I think things are off to a very good start. And in fact, next week sort of is the midpoint of session. It's called crossover. I think the issues right this moment, the kind of the big issues that I think have taken front and center stage, and I think will continue to, some different things. I think the budget certainly is going to be where a big battle happens between the governor and the legislature, and there'll be some real sausage made there. We have a surplus here in Virginia, depending on who you listen to, between $1.5 and $2 billion. And what to do with that. Governor Youngkin, being a conservative, believes a lot of that should be given back to the taxpayers in form of tax cuts and tax rebates. The legislature, in more Democratic hands, believes that it ought to be spent on health and human services and some other things. So it's just a matter of sort of figuring out what the big issues are and whether they're able to come to agreement. There's no guarantee that they will. In Virginia, you have a biennial budget, which was passed last year. These are technically budget amendments this year, so you don't actually have to pass them. Virginia would still have a budget. But my guess is when all is said and done, we will end up with a lot of budget amendments, and the governor may get a little bit of what he wants, and probably the legislature gets maybe a little more of what they want. So just stay tuned for that. Data centers, certainly in Northern Virginia, are a big piece that folks will taking a hard look at. A lot of people up in Northern Virginia are kind of fed up with data centers and don't want to have them anymore. And there are a lot of people certainly downstate who would like to have a shot at getting them. So, there's a lot of things about siting and energy and that sort of thing. Those sorts of things that are percolating around. That's definitely a topic that has gotten a fair amount of scrutiny and will continue to through the process. Maternal health, we participated in a lot of that in the off season, and part of the package has some dentistry related to it. That's a big issue, certainly for House Democrats and even Senate Democrats as well. So we'll sort of see where things shake out on that front. But I think those are kind of the big issues for now.
Well, thank you, Trip. We heard from Governor Youngkin and Senator Todd Pillion at the VDA's lobby day about a week ago, with hundreds of dentists, dental students from around the state joining to advocate for dentistry. Can you talk about the feedback you're hearing from legislators after those legislative visits and what we're seeing happen already?
Sure. Yeah, it's crazy. That was only just about a little over a week ago. It seems like 10 years ago in legislative time. But no, I think as it always is. I think, and if I'm wrong, and maybe it was certainly, if it was not the best, well attended from the dentist and the dental students, it was certainly one of the best. And I think legislators are always blown away just to see the white coats coming up the hill and the students coming up the hill. I always tell people they would much rather see you all than they would like to see me. They see my ugly face all day long, and I can get you in the door. But they love to talk issues. This year we didn't have a huge agenda, so they particularly enjoy that when we're not necessarily don't have a giant ask or a handout for potentially more money. And I think it was just extremely well received by all legislators, and got some good feedback from both sides, both both Republicans as well as Democrats. So kudos to you all and the staff and the membership for stepping up as you always do to get up here and support the profession.
Well, thank you, Trip, and thank you for all you do throughout the year. I know this is the culmination of what is a year-long effort and for the legislative agenda that we put forward. One of the items that came up in the past week It's not always our proactive legislation that is a reason that it's important for us to be there. VDA sent an action alert out last week on legislation that would partially lift the medical malpractice cap in Virginia. This has been firmly on our radars, legislations that come up in the past. Can you share what happened this morning with that bill?
Absolutely, yeah. The good news is that bill died in a Senate Finance subcommittee this morning. It passed out of the originating committee, which was the Commerce and Labor Committee, but died in the Senate Finance subcommittee this morning. Lots of problems with that bill. Obviously, trial lawyer Bill Stanley, great guy, but carrying that bill has for the last several years. I think the problem with lifting the med mal cap, obviously, air premiums would go up. That's one problem. But I think the bigger problem is it'd be very difficult to even find insurance companies to even that would even write the policies anymore. And that's happened in some other states. So I think that kudos to the Medical Society. Scott Johnson, who is also your general counsel, your outside counsel as well, does a great job for you all. They led the charge on that, and we're able to defeat it. We obviously weighed in heavily as well. So that's good news. Died this morning.
Well, thank you, and that is very good news. Last week we heard ADA President Dr. Brett Kessler joined us in Virginia. He spoke on Friday to the VDA House of Delegates. One of the things he said in his address was that he sees the results of our close relationships with lawmakers and the legislation that's come out of Virginia in the last few years. That includes a 34% combined increase in Medicaid reimbursement rates for dental, Virginia being one of 3 states to successfully pass legislation that included dental loss ratio reporting last year, important legal protections for dental team members seeking mental health support, and the removal of stigmatizing licensure questions. Licensure portability for dentists and dental hygienists, and that's just a few of the things we've passed. One of the messages our members were taking to legislators this year, as you said, has been thanking them, reminding them about their support for these important initiatives, not asking for the moon every year we go up on the hill. Can you talk about why that's important for legislators to hear the thank you and the recognition, not just the legislative asks?
Absolutely, yeah. No, thanks. I love the question because it's just very true. You all, the Virginia Dental Association, one of the most well-respected lobbying sort of groups that are up here, certainly on the medical side, but just generally. And I think, first of all, you all, the members, have personal relationships with nearly all of the legislators. Kudos to Laura Gibbons for the good work she does to connect those dots. And when we go out, the lobbying team, goes out to meet folks. When they're first running, we make sure one of the first questions we ask, who's your local dentist? And you just can't beat home cooking. I mean, you really, really can't. And obviously, you as a dentist will see legislators once or twice a year, like you do most of your patients. And I think you just can't beat that. And I definitely do believe, and we've certainly been politically active with the PAC. I think we need to continue to do things to reinforce that. Virginia is a state that is very expensive to run in because there are no limits. The amount of money that is coming to these elections it's out of hand. It's crazy, but it's like anything. You better keep up with it. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that. Need to continue that as we move forward and get some new ideas in terms of how to bolster the PAC. We've done a very, very good job in the past. And I think also, as you said, it's not coming up here every year just to have a legislative agenda, just to throw something at the wall. When we the VDA and your lobbying team, when we have a priority, we make sure that the work is done on it, and we make sure bills don't get passed in December, January, and February. Bills get passed in July, August, and September. We get out on the road, we do our work, we do our homework, we know what the advocates are going to be saying, and we know what the opponents on the other side are going to be saying. And we don't, again, it's a process that starts in March, and I think that's why one of the reasons we've been successful. We don't always feel like, oh gosh, we've got a legislative team here, we've got to go do something. Things are going just fine. It's good. It's great to get up here and just press the flesh, say thank you, and I think we did a heck of a job of that this year.
Well, thank you, Trip. And among the proactive VDA bills that we do have this year, those include drawing down federal Medicaid funding for the VCU School of Dentistry, legislation that requires health insurance carriers to offer a reimbursement option that doesn't carry a processing or administrative fee, and requiring any option that does to does include a fee to have that fee disclosed. Budget amendments that would invest in VCCS, dental hygiene programs through the Virginia Community College system, and create and provide funding for new rural health repayment programs specifically for dentists and dental hygienists. Can you share where are we seeing movement on those proactive legislative initiatives, and what's the feedback that you're hearing from legislators?
Yeah, I think we'll start to see the budget Sunday, which is the day that both the House will come out with their budget, the Senate will come out with their budget. That is this upcoming Sunday on the 2nd. So we'll have a better feel for what that looks like then on the community college front, as well as that federal funding that you mentioned. It's always good when a budget amendment doesn't have any dollars attached to it. It makes it a little easier to sell. So that is good. And certainly, last year we helped the VCU School of Dentistry get some money in the budget for planning for the new dental school that they're wanting to build down there. And for those that have been in that dental school of late, it is desperately needed. So there was not a specific ask on that this year, but there will be next year of probably $400 to $500 billion that will be bonded. $400 to $500 million that will need to be bonded, and so that will be an ask next year. It'll be one of the largest projects, if not the largest projects in the Commonwealth's history. So we'll need to be prepared for that.
All 100 seats in the House of Delegates are going to be up for election this year. We'll have elections for governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general. Are we seeing any of those electoral dynamics at play as we go through this session? And can you talk about how the VDA engages in elections? You mentioned earlier
Sure.
the VDA PAC.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, obviously, people are posturing for next year. I think certainly the speaker who speaks. Speaker Don Scott, who's been just his second year as speaker. His only mission in life, and he will tell you that, is to get reelected speaker next year after the election. And so I think he's been able to sort of temper his caucus to some degree. It's a very narrowly divided House at 51 Democrats and 49 Republicans. So I think he's done a very good job of that from a business perspective. So you've certainly seen some of that. So some of the more progressive things that some might want to be passed are being passed by for the year, being laid on the table, or what have you. So you sort of see that. There's definitely some posturing. There's definitely some sort of bumper sticker bills, as we call them, that will never actually get passed, but people can say they introduced them. So certainly you've seen some of that. And I think the dynamics between the governor and the legislature are particularly tense because at the end of the day, let's be honest, the Democrats don't want to give the Republican governor a win that might help who's the likely nominee, Winsome Sears, on the Republican side, in trying to do things to help Abigail Spanberger on the Democratic side. But it's going to be interesting. I think Trump in 2016, when he was first elected, the following year in 17, the Republicans lost 15 seats in the House, went from 66 to 51, and barely got to the 51. The question is how much of that is already baked in for these upcoming elections. And obviously what Trump does or doesn't do over the next 9 months will have a huge impact on what those elections will look like. We, as we always do, will take a hard look at the candidates and make some decisions on where to invest and where not to invest. I tell people, we're not, we don't lean R, we don't necessarily lean D, right? We want to help our friends who've been there for us, and we'll continue to take that approach.
Well, thank you, Trip, as always, as you represent our members in the General Assembly, along with the rest of the Government Affairs team, Laura, Missy, Chuck, Jennifer. Is there anything else you'd like to add that's important for members to know?
Yeah, I think so, Paul, and I think this is kind of late breaking as of at least Friday. But first of all, let me put a plug in for a couple of people. I think Senator Todd Pillion, we are very blessed to have him. You all are very blessed to have him as a fellow dentist in the Senate. He was originally in the House and moved over to the Senate several years ago. He is also a budget conferee. You just cannot imagine how important that is when anything happens with dentistry. If the word dentistry shows up in a bill, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, whether you're in the House or the Senate, you're going to ask Todd what he thinks. And what he thinks makes all the difference in the world. And so I think, again, just to recognize that. Also, for those that do not know, Speaker Don Scott, his wife, Dr. Scott, is a dentist and is a big advocate for the dental association and for all things dentistry. So we're very, very lucky to have those two dynamics in play for sure. There was a bill that Senator Pillion introduced and it was amended on Friday that basically instructed the Board of Dentistry to look at a couple of different things, to look at licensure and some portability issues related to both dentists and hygienists. Obviously, we're facing a severe shortage of hygienists here in the Commonwealth. I wanted to try to do something to help that, and I think the conversation that will likely happen in the off season with the Board of Dentistry and stakeholders will do so as a part of that, as a piece of that substitute bill that was voted on unanimously Friday. Also included foreign trained dentists to potentially serve as hygienists here in the Commonwealth. And so I think that is something I think we'll be able to, as a group, get behind and support. We did on Friday. And again, any study group like that will be able to stay fairly narrowly focused on those topics. But at the end of the day, I think will be a great forum for us to have a discussion about how do we get more dental access here in Virginia? How do we make sure that we continue to try to find ways to get more and more hygienists into the system? There's no silver bullet for that. There's no magic bullet. There's no magic few bullets, frankly. But I think this discussion and around the foreign trained dentists being able to do hygiene will be able to certainly keep us in that issue in the forefront as we go into the off season and potentially find some solutions, legislative solutions for the 2026 session.
Thank you for bringing that up. That is obviously an important issue to watch, particularly as the Commission on Dental Accreditation is meeting this weekend, considering additional flexibility that they may allow to have this as a group that's going to continue to study the issue and make recommendations in November. Tripp, thank you for joining us and sharing that update. We'll plan to touch base in a week and share another update as we get closer to crossover and let members know what's going on that impacts them. But thank you for being an advocate for them and being their eyes and ears as all of these issues are winding their way through the General Assembly.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate it. You all, as always, say, and I really do mean it, that the Dental Association is very, very proud to represent you all.
Thank you for listening. As Tripp said, Virginia's legislative session moves quickly. To make sure you receive all of the latest breaking news, sign up for VDA text alerts by texting VDA to 52886. That's VDA to 52886. Thank you for joining us.